In the very first video that I posted to this channel, I started building this witch farm. For those who are unfamiliar, this is my long-term survival world where I focus on making large-scale builds. This build in particular has a lot more work that needs to be done, and in this video, I'd like to complete it. The first step of this project is also going to be the one that takes the longest. I need to clear out a lot of space in order for this build to fit. I actually ended up clearing out a lot more than I needed to because I wanted to have breathing room on either side of this build. During the digging process, I broke several netherite tools, but I have an enderman farm, so using mending, I was able to repair those tools and replenish my toolbox as many times as I needed to. I also want to point out here that I'm using a custom texture pack that I built myself, so if you're seeing some strange things like pink leaves, those aren't features of mods, but rather me retexturing birch leaves. With everything moved out of my way, I was finally able to lay out the final footprint of this build. Once I saw the outline of the build laid out like this, it really dawned on me how much more work had to be done before this build was going to be ready to share. I mentioned in part 1 of this video that I was unhappy with the black crater in the center of the build. I thought for a while about what blocks I could use other than black concrete to help increase the interest in that area. But eventually I decided that it would be much better to change the shape of the build rather than the texture. To accomplish this, I added 4 spikes, one in each of the 4 cardinal directions. For those who didn't watch the first video, the symbols that are around this circle are letters from the galactic alphabet, which is the language that's used in the enchanting table. These letters actually correspond to English letters, so I spelled out my name, one and only Delta. The next ring is going to be magenta. This ring is going to be the simplest, but it'll help brighten the build a lot. Of course, concrete on its own wouldn't look very interesting, so I'm going to add a layer of stained glass on top. I'm using a mix of purple and magenta glass here. This effect really helps the whole magical theme that I'm going for with this build. The next ring is going to mimic the first one. I start with a foundation of black concrete. Later on, I'm going to add a layer of black stained glass on top of that to help with mob proofing. Adding this second black ring makes the magenta color look a lot brighter than it actually is, and I really like that effect. After the upgrades I had made so far, the symbols on the inner ring started to look very dull by comparison. To amend this issue, I added concrete underneath the symbols and also changed up the colors so that they would pop a bit more. On the new outer ring, I'm going to be adding 24 new enchanting table symbols. For this ring, I'm going to alternate between white and magenta every 3 symbols. Now it's finally time to start on the outermost ring of this build. The circles that I've laid out around the build are going to depict 16 moon phases. In my opinion, this is what really makes the build. That said, this was way more expensive than I expected it to be. I ended up going through way more concrete than I ever thought I would, but I was really happy with the final product, so it was all worth it in the end. Once all the building was complete, I decided to polish up the area by adding a layer of grass on top of all of the exposed stone that is still there from the mining stage. The build is finally finished and I am very happy with it. The moons in particular are one of my favorite things that I've ever built in this game. I think the only thing I would change with the benefit of hindsight is the color of the potion that's inside the cauldron. I think a color like pink or red would have fit in a lot better with the color scheme, but I still do like the lime a lot. Thank you all for sticking around to the end of this video. If you want to see more content like this, I have a couple of other videos on my channel, and I do plan on continuing to post survival Minecraft content like this, so if that interests you, I'd really appreciate your subscription.